Look on the news this morning, what do you see? Yet another war, yet another crisis, yet another protest playing out, yet another MP being caught out and bumbling their words of apology. Starts to make you think, is this the best that we can do? Unless this is the plan, unless this is the design. We always imagine that the pyramid structure of organisation is the people, the politicians, and then maybe like a head of state at the top. But the pyramid goes much, much deeper than that. There are many, many more layers to this shit. And these politicians, they're just the face, the useful idiots. We need to now start understanding this system and how it works and how we're being used right at the bottom. Nation of sleepers, I'm relying on you. Let's do this. Some say it's incompetence. They're just weak, they say. Politicians don't care, that's what we hear. But I'm telling you now, this isn't incompetence. This is by design. This is a spiritual war wearing a political mask. We are right now the laughingstock of the world. Washington Post recently reported that the UK is currently using over 200 hotels across the country to house around 32,000 asylum seekers, and it's caused widespread political, unrest across the whole country. We've got the Pink Ladies, we've got the Raise the Colours campaign, we've got protests right around the country outside all these hotels. It is absolute chaos. But here's the truth that's going to make you quite uncomfortable. The chaos, the incompetence, the collapse, it is all necessary. It's all demanded because this is how evil wins ground. By creating confusion, inverting the truth, what it's doing is weakening our nation and many others so that we get to a point where we beg for control, we beg for the digital ID or whatever it is that they say is the solution. The Sun recently reported that Keir Starmer signed this one-in, one-out deal with France. But since then, over 3,500 dinghy migrants have arrived in the UK, but zero, and I say zero, returns have occurred. That is our government's handling of this crisis. Shocking. You walk down any high street in this country right now, you speak to anybody in any walk of life, and you will hear the anger. People are furious. Most people who just never say nothing about anything are absolutely incensed. They're furious about all of these hotels being used to house these illegal migrants. While veterans are sleeping rough, whilst we've got poverty in our country, families can't get housing, yet thousands of strangers are able to just rock up on the shores of this country and are put up for free. The Guardian currently reported that in Epping, Essex, there was massive protests outside the Bell Hotel because there was a guy there and he basically had been accused and has since been charged with assaulting a 14-year-old girl shortly after arriving into the UK. Now, it's also been admitted that the government doesn't actually do any checks on these individuals when they come to the country. They might not even check up on them for several years after they arrive. They just basically get filtered out into the country, and then someone somewhere is thinking, maybe we should track these at some point, but they're not doing. So unless you've been living under a rock for the last few months, you would have heard about the Bell Hotel in Epping, Essex. So in summary, an asylum seeker from Ethiopia had come across the channel, ended up being put in that hotel, and then within a matter of days he'd sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl and a woman who'd both tried to help him write a CV. The normal sort of usual crowd all were trying to hush it up, say, oh, you're all far-right extremists. However, he's since been charged with those two crimes. Now, the interesting thing will be whether or not he gets ejected from the country at this point or he gets put up in one of the UK prisons. So either or, you basically come across the channel and it doesn't matter how naughty you are, you're either going to get put up in a hotel or you're going to get put up at His Majesty's pleasure. And both of those things are costing us, the taxpayer, an awful lot of money. So it'll be interesting to see how that one develops. He would be a perfect case to get ejected from the country. Send him to Rwanda. No, in fact, that's too close to his home in Ethiopia. Send him to somewhere like the Arctic, We'll process him up there. I'm right up in the north, so nowhere near a coastline. However, across the south, especially Dover, these dinghies are landing daily. You're seeing footage on social media of people sunbathing on the beach and then just a boat rocking up, two guys scuttling down from a van going getting them. So it's all super organised, this. There's also quite a lot of evidence suggesting that these boats are being recycled back to France by who knows who, so that they can be used again. I don't understand how this hasn't been stopped, but there is clearly no political will. All they choose to do is just argue with each other, blame each other. Oh, it's all the Conservatives' fault. Oh, it's all Labour's fault. But this is a massive humanitarian challenge, and it is going to lead to serious confrontation across the country if it doesn't get stopped soon. The Guardian reported that over 153 people arrived in 3 dinghies last Saturday. They went to Manston, which is an old RAF base, and that's where they usually go there. But at the end of the day, that's going to get flooded, and people are now going down there to protest and probably intervene as they land on the shore. So it is going to get more serious as time goes on. Now, it does seem that the good old Irish led this charge, because as everyone in Britain was sitting on their hands a little bit, the Irish were starting to kick off, and I think that has prompted everyone else to start, protesting a bit more significantly about the mass flooding of our towns and cities with these migrants, undocumented males from countries unknown, because they all throw the passports in the sea if they had them in the first place. So thanks, Ireland, for that. Keep up the good work. In France, we can clearly see that the police are doing nothing. They might do a photo shoot stabbing one boat, but then there's thousands and thousands marching north, heading towards the northern shores of Calais. What we're not seeing, though, is the hidden hand behind it, because they're saying it's these organised smuggling gangs, but there is no way that they could operate unless they were being allowed to. Al Jazeera has been reporting, that across the UK there's massive anti-immigration protests, several clashes in northern towns, Northern Ireland. It is massively going off, and ultimately the police are going to be overwhelmed because there's not enough of them, as we know. Chronic under shortage, reductions in recruitment, all the diversity drives that they've done. So essentially they're being set up as well, because they're being made to fight their kinsmen over something that most of them probably agree is like really bad policy as well. People all know that there's something not quite right going on, and that's why there's this massive sense of betrayal. You've got like protesters and the anti-protester, counter-protester people, and they're all marching, shouting, rioting, but the politicians, it's as if they do live in a bubble, but they're just completely numb to it, completely blind. They don't care. Or is that coincidence? Is this part of something deeper? Are they being told, hold the line, because eventually the people are going to give up? However, if we think back to Northern Ireland, Ballymena, there's a load of migrants moved into that town, and there was some pretty violent incursion against them, and the protesters got what they wanted, which was for all of these migrants to move out of the area. The media is trying to spin it as saying, oh yeah, it's returned to tranquility, etc. But the aim was achieved, wasn't it? And that's a bad precedent to set. Well, here's the crux of the problem. If the government wanted to stop the boats from coming across the channel, if the government wanted to have strong borders, we would have them. If the system wanted law and order to be restored, it would deliver it. The system has money for whatever it chooses, endless billions for Ukraine, endless billions for foreign aid, yet somehow, even though we defended against Hitler and his invasion in the Second World War, we have no ability to defend our own shores anymore. This is absolute nonsense. This year alone, it's seen the biggest increase, over 25,000 migrants coming across the channel. And this is when Starmer's talking about smashing the gangs and setting up this command and doing this and doing that. Why is it that month on month the numbers coming across are increasing when we're supposed to be doing all of this amazing work to stop it? But this is when the reality dawns. This incompetence, these useful idiots in government, they are the weapon, because their incompetence breaks down our trust in the nation. It makes us fearful of what's going to happen. It pushes us into hopelessness. So we get so angry and everything kicks off so badly that people start to demand a solution. And this is where the solution comes. Digital IDs, and that's what it's all been about. It's about divide and rule so that they can bring in Tony Blair's baby, the digital ID. This is how they're going to say that they're going to be able to track, Interpol style, these people across Europe and then send them back to their nation of origin. Absolute rubbish. This is about control of us, the law-abiding citizens, because we're the only people that will sign up or be made to sign up to the digital ID. And they'll have a carrot and they'll have a stick. The carrot will be, it will keep you safe. The stick will be, you're not going to be able to access your cashless bank accounts or any of the other benefits that will come with having this. And we've seen it already with COVID, where if you didn't have the vaccine passport, you weren't allowed into pubs, you weren't allowed to travel, some people got sacked from the jobs. And so this is the test phase complete. Now they're rolling it out into the big one, and this is where we really, really do need to resist. All of this incompetence, it is orchestrated though. This is not a failure of leadership. This is a strategy of collapse. The traitors are doing this on purpose. Every mistake, every delayed action, Every contradictory policy is part of a spiritual war against you and me to break our faith and to break our nation. You may not have heard this, but Reuters was reporting recently that the British government, recently won a court ruling where it said that any asylum seeker, that had been convicted of a sexual assault did not have to be evicted from the hotel that they were staying in. When this becomes more widespreadly known, this is going to cause the next level of frustration, anger, and watch what happens. But without going too spiritual, evil doesn't create, it merely corrupts. It inverts God's order. God is the creator, the devil is the inverter. And that's why you see the words twisted. That's why mass migration is called compassion. That's why lawlessness is called tolerance. Open borders are called diversity. Tyranny is called safety. It is all part of this Luciferian design. But Lucifer can't create truth, he can only invert it. So the very things destroying our nations are being presented as moral obligations. If you oppose it, like many of us do, you're branded a racist, a bigot, a conspiracy theorist, and we can see that playing out day in, day out. The system is using guilt as a weapon. It's saying to us, if you're a good person, you will just accept this. But what they really mean is if you become subservient and kneel, we'll reward you. But God never asked us to kneel to lies. God asked us to stand for truth. And that's the difference. Illegal immigration isn't the end game. It's just a tool in this problem reaction solution. This is what they're going to do. First of all, they're going to flood the borders. And then they're going to see this massive, massive chaos created so that we become angry. That's the reaction. And then the solution will be the imposition of the digital ID on us all. And that is the ultimate end game because they want to control us. And they're doing it by flooding the borders.